A warm welcome! I am the Italian Dev and on my channel I upload weekly web development tutorial videos. I'm really excited to introduce you to this fully functional Web3 application we are going to go together in this complete Web3 development course. This is Dashboard 3, a Web3 dashboard built with Next.js and Moralis that allows you to authenticate with Metamask and shows you all your ERC721 token balances, your last 5 transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, your NFTs, and also allow you to send Ethers to other Ethereum address. Believe me, you will learn a lot at the end of this more than 2-hour long video course, but most important, you will have the basic knowledge to leverage the Moralis SDK and API and code any kind of decentralized application you want, throwing all the complexity related to the Web3 world away. Moralis will handle it for us. For free, Moralis will provide us a complete backend infrastructure, a server, a MongoDB database, Web3 API. All this stuff ready to go and to be scaled with just one click. Last but not least, we will happy to apply some basic styling to our decentralized application by using Chakra UI components. Please, if you like this type of content, help your favorite Italian dev, so me, and hit the like button, comment in the comment section down below and subscribe to the channel. Enough said, let's go straight into the code. Let's start by creating a new Next.js application. Open the terminal and type the command npx create next app, and I'm gonna call mine Moralis Dashboard 3. So this will install the initial dependency. Now that the dependency are installed, let's navigate inside the newly created folder. So type cd Moralis Dashboard 3, and now we can open this folder inside Visual Studio Code with the command code dot. Okay, so we have a newly created Next.js application and we can see if everything works fine, just opening the integrated terminal and running the command npm run dev. So it will fire up a new server at localhost port 3000. Open new browser and type localhost port 3000. Okay, we have the basic Next.js application ready. So let's start by deleting all the files that we don't need. Under the API folder, there are all the files related to the Next.js API route, so we can remove this folder since we don't need it for this project. Right click, delete, move to trash. Inside the index.js, we can remove only the boilerplate code and return for now just a simple div component with an h1 hello world text. Save it. Inside the underscore app.js we can remove the style that is imported at the top, since we are gonna use Chakra UI React component to style a little bit our dashboard, our Web3 dashboard, so we can remove also the styles folder. Let's delete it. Now it's time to install and bring Chakra UI inside our project. So let's navigate to Chakra UI website so we can take all the dependency we need to install it. So here under the installation tab we can select Next.js, so getting started with Next.js. They also have a useful YouTube video, but we can just copy this line and stop temporarily our server and paste it here. Make sure you are inside the folder, the root folder of the project. And this will install Chakra UI React, Emotion React, Emotion Style, and also Framer Motion. Okay. Now that all the Chakra UI dependencies are correctly installed, we can move back inside our _app.js and wrap our entire application with the Chakra provider. So move this one back here. Perfect. And I'm using the auto import extension. This one, auto import. This plugin right here that has, this extension right here that has nearly 2 million downloads. So I start typing the component and then a pop-up window will show up so I can choose which one I need and autocomplete, auto-import it by just pressing tab. Like if I provide the, here we are. So if I press tab here, it will import the Chakra provider from Chakra UI React. Now we can check if everything works fine by typing in the integrated terminal npm run dev, so to fire up again our server at localhost port 3000. Refresh the page and perfect. As you can see, if we inspect this one, we can see that at the body tag, the Chakra UI light, since Chakra UI by default support the light mode and dark mode, is applied the Chakra class, so it means that Chakra UI is correctly set up inside our Next.js application. So now that we have Chakra UI installed, we can move to Moralis.io and install. First of all, create the server. As we said in the intro, Moralis.io is the development platform that we are going to use to bring Web3 inside our Next.js application. It really will allow to perform all the Web3 related stuff really easily. And they define themselves like they are the Firebase of the Web3 world. And after using it, I completely agree with their statement. So you can sign up for free if you don't have an account. I already have an account since I already played with it. So I can log in inside my account. Perfect. Here we are. I already test most of their feature with this test server. So up above here with this button we can create a new server. Since we are in, let's say, development mode, we are gonna choose testnet server. So it means we will test all our functionality under the Rinkeby Ethereum testnet and not on the mainnet, because it will cost some money, because we need, to sign transaction and anything like that, we need to pay gas for any transaction. So I can call this server dashboard 3. I'm gonna choose as a region Frankfurt, since it's the one nearest to my position right now. So select testnet network, and I'm going to select the Rinkeby Test Network. So I just click add instance, and this will create and set up our testnet server with just few clicks. So now, meanwhile, the Moralis.io is setting up our testnet server, we can move back to our Next.js application, stop the server, and install all the dependency we need to configure to use Moralis easily inside our application. So type the command npm install Moralis, then we need React Moralis, and that's it. Because React Moralis is a package that allow us to use many hooks that will allow us to easily set up and expose the Moralis SDK inside our application. And you will see it in a moment once we will have our testnet server ready to go. Perfect. Now we have our testnet server correctly set up by Moralis. What we have to do now is to, as we did for the Chakra provider, to go back inside our _app.js and wrap our application with another provider. And this time we will do it with the Moralis provider, and wrap our application inside it. So we can consume this provider in our future components. Now, to make this Moralis provider work, we need to pass two additional props. One is the app ID and the other one is the serve URL. It's a common practice to store this kind of variables inside the environment variables. So let's create at the root level of our project a new file and call it .env.local. And inside here we can set up these two values that we will take from Moralis website and then inject this value inside our application thanks to the process.env command. So inside .env.local, let's create first of all the first variable, and we need to start them with next_public. And this means this allows Next.js to know that these variables are safe to be exposed on the browser, on the client. So next_public app ID equal, and the next one again next_public underscore, and we need server URL. Let's call it server underscore URL equal. So now we can go back to our Moralis dashboard. If we click view details, here we have the server URL we need, and this is the location, the URL of our server, and then we have a unique identifier that is the application ID. So copy server URL and paste it here, and then the application ID and paste it here. Please don't use mine, because after I will publish the tutorial, I'm gonna stop this server or change this value. Since they are free, you can easily create your own server on Moralis. Now that we have this local file, we can go back to _app.js and pass this value to app ID and to serve URL. Open and close curly brackets and type process.env. I'm gonna just copy paste to be sure to don't have any typo, and paste here the app ID and here the same process.env. Not here but here, server URL, copy, paste. Perfect. So now our application is wrapped inside the Moralis provider, so it means that in our components we can consume all the values that this provider will provide us. And just to test if everything is working, we can go inside our index.js and type const open close curly brackets equal to use Moralis sook. This one I can press tab, so it will automatically import it from React Moralis for me. And if I mouse over this component and then click inside, here we have the use Moralis, that is bring us back inside the interface Moralis context value, and here we have all the value and method that this context takes from the Moralis provider. We have Authenticate. This one is to auth user with passing some parameters. We will authenticate our user with Metamask. Then we have logout to logout user. This sign up and login are for email and password authentication, because with our server set up from Moralis, we also have a database already configured. So if we open the details and click on the dashboard, here you can see we have this admin panel, and this is our database. So for now we have just the role class, we don't have any user, and then when the user will log in inside, will authenticate with Metamask, they will be saved also on this database. But most of the time, because let me show something else. If you click again on view details and you go on settings, you can choose to have this client class creation enabled. And so it means that allows you to create new class, new object to your database. Let's say you are creating a game, NFT game, where you need the class player, and also you need to define the score, you need to define their maybe card to play. You can create all this class, let's say, object that will reflected inside this database. But it's not our case, because we are not going to create a project like this. And then you also have this option to sync all the user historical data like transaction, NFTs and tokens. And having this option enabled means that when a user log in, sign up into our Web3 application using Metamask, all his historical transaction will be saved inside this database. I don't find it, how to say, really near to the concept of Web3, because storing a lot of data inside the database is a bit in conflict with the definition of Web3, because, you know, Web3 is known to be decentralized, and saving user data inside the database is not so near to the centralized concept. So we are not gonna use this option, so we can disable it if the toggle works and save this configuration, because we are gonna take all, let's call Web3 related data directly from the blockchain using the Web3 API, also provided by the Moralis SDK. So we are gonna read data from the blockchain and not from our database. So we can go back to Visual Studio Code, and as I was saying before, here we have all the value that we can consume from the use Moralis hook. And so we can take, for example, is authenticated. And this is a boolean that will tell us if the user that is browsing our web application is authenticated or not. We can just for now console.log this value to see if Moralis is correctly set up and everything is working fine. So again, back in the integrated terminal and type npm run dev. Perfect. We can go back to our browser, refresh the page, open the developer tools, and read the value. Look, false. So it means that we are not authenticated. So now, oops, here we have a warning. Okay, because I don't know why, maybe they will fix this in the future, but to get rid of this really annoying warning, let's install also this package. We don't need it because we are not going to use Wallet Connect to inject Web3 in our application, but we are going to use Metamask. So in practical and theoretically too, we don't need this package, but this warning will fire up every time we run our application. So to get rid of it, let's make Moralis API and install this unneeded package because we don't need it. But at least we will not have that warning every time we run our application. Okay, now we have this unneeded package too. We can clear the terminal and run the server again, npm run dev. So let's see if this warning is out of our terminal console. Perfect, we don't have it anymore. Okay, so what we can do now? Now that we have this boolean value telling us if the user is authenticated or not, what we can do is to render in our home page, since we are gonna build a single page application, so we will not have additional routes. We can render in our home page components depending on this boolean value. So what we can say is if is not authenticated, return something, else return something else. So we can open a React fragment and put inside, so start with add component from Next.js, just to give to our page a simple title. And for this one, so we are not authenticated, so we can just set as a title login inside dashboard 3. Okay, so now we can create a simple login page. We can start by using a flex component, that is a Chakra UI component. It's like a box component, but with the flex box property, easy to set up. Let me type it again since I didn't import it. Let me check if it's imported now. Perfect, imported flex from Chakra UI React. Inside this flex, we can have another Chakra UI component, the second one here, in which we can write dashboard 3, that is the title of our web application, and just below a button, always from Chakra UI, in which we can type login with Metamask. Perfect. Now we don't have any style applied. Button is not defined because sometimes the auto import doesn't work fine. So button, perfect. Okay, so now we have dashboard tree and login with Metamask. Cool. So we can start to style a bit this login screen. So let's start to provide some useful props to this Chakra UI component. So to the flex one, let's give a direction of column. Then justify content center. Align items center. Then let's make more space. So writing each prop on its own lines. So then we can give a width of 100, the viewport width, so the entire screen, an height of 100, viewport height. And then let's give a background gradient to make it a little bit stylish, and pass a linear gradient from top to bottom right. So it goes in this way, from the top to bottom right. And we will make this gradient go from, let's do teal 400 and purple 300. Let's see if it's something not so ugly. Okay, I don't know why I don't have the gradient applied, because maybe I did some mistake. Line. Ah, here is the mistake. Okay, it could work. So we have this is our flex component. We said we give to it a column direction. So you can see our two elements are placed in a column direction. So the first up, the second down. Then we give a justify content to center and align items to center. And then we define the linear background color from top to bottom right. And as you can see here, we have this teal 400 that moving from the bottom right becomes a purple 300, according to a linear gradient formula. Okay, now we can start to style a little bit this title. And so inside the text component, we can give a font size of 5 XL, a font weight of bold, and the color of white. Okay, here we are. And then our button, login with Metamask, we can pass a color scheme of purple. Passing the color scheme, it will make the white text the background purple, and also it becomes darker when it hover. So when on mouse over, we will have this nice effect, just passing a single prop color scheme. If not, if we pass a background color, then we need to style also when we mouse over. But passing the color scheme, we can have both at the same time. Then size, let's make it bigger so we can give a size of LG and a bit of margin top, 6. Okay, now that we have, let's say, our login screen, we can now make this button work. So when we click on it, a Metamask window will pop up, and so we can confirm and sign the transaction, the request. So it means we can log in using Metamask inside our website. Seems not too easy in words, but this process is made really easy by use Moralis hook that exposes us the Authenticate method. So we can go back to our button and on click callback anonymous function, and we call Authenticate. Perfect. So now Authenticate, we can pass some props to it, but let's try it in this way without passing any props, and then we will change it just to show how it works without passing anything. And then, so we know, as of now, if the user is not authenticated, return this login screen. Else, so it means the user is authenticated, just give us an hello world h1 tag. So let's save index.js, go back to our application and just click login with Metamask. Look, a Metamask pop-up will fire up. Now I have just to test account with some fake it inside in. I can go with account 1, click next, and then connect. Here we have a message, Moralis Authentication, with the ID of this signature request. And what we can do then is pass some parameters inside the Authenticate function, so we can change also this signature request message. For now, just let's click sign, and as you can see, we have the authentication flow, most of the authentication flow, so only the login part for now, correctly working, because now we have our hello world as we define here inside our code. So if we are authenticated, just show us an hello world. And we can check even better just opening the developer tools and navigating under the application tab, and in the local storage we have all this data generated for us by the Authenticate method. As you can see, we have this class name underscore user. Remember, I showed you before the dashboard here, and this underscore user is the class in which all the user data will be saved. And so is here that we have the timestamp of the created that, we have the Ethereum address, and this is the address which we authenticated. So as you can see, the final are 62 DC, as is shown here. Then an object ID that is needed for the Moralis SDK to save this user inside the database. Then we have this session token, that is the token used to keep track of the session. So if we refresh the page, look, we are still logged in inside our application. Updated that because we can update the user data. I will show you how to do it. We will change just the username, and then we have also a randomly generated username here. Now if we try to refresh this panel, this dashboard, under the user table, user class, we see that now before was empty and now we have a row with the value, and this the object ID, ACL, update that, our data is the one stored in the local storage, the randomly generated username, created the account, the Ethereum address. So we have all this data saved in this Moralis database. So now we can style this application a little bit more, since we know how to log in, how to authenticate. So let's go back inside Visual Studio Code again, and instead of return just a simple h1 tag with hello world, we can now have again React fragment, so to return just one single node, and then again here we can define an add tag and pass a title tag, and we can show just dashboard 3, so mean that we are inside. And also here we can start with the flex component, and inside style our application. We can start by adding a very simple header at the top. So instead of coding all the components we need inside this single index.js file, is a best practice so to create a new folder at the root level of our application and call it components, in which we will create all the components we need inside our home page. So we can start with the header component. So new file, call it header.js. Okay, and we can start by just simply export default function header and return. For now, I leave with inside the paragraph I am the header. Go back inside, we can close this tab since we don't need them, and back in the index.js, from the components, perfect, open and closing tag. Let's see if the import was correct. So from app1 directory, we are moving out the page inside components and header.js. Look, we have now I am the header. So we can start creating our very, very simple header. So let's navigate back inside Visual Studio Code and inside header.js. So first of all, instead of returning a div, we can just return an header tag, since we are creating an header. And again here, let's start by opening and closing a simple flex component. Then I can use a center component that is again just a box with enhanced features, and it will center all the elements inside of it. And so we can put here a text And let's import here text from Chakra UI and define inside here our title, dashboard 3. Then, so we will have, let me explain a bit our simple header before we will code it. So we will have our brand, so our title here on the top left, and then here we will have username and the logout button. And then we don't need to check if the user is authenticated or not, because we are already doing it inside our index.js. So we are returning our header component only at the point that we know that the user is already authenticated. So we don't need to perform any check here. We can just return the styled header. So we will have here again another center, and inside a text and the button. Let's out import it. So the button is a simply logout button, and the text we have the user, so we need the user to grab the username. So let's take from prop user. So putting curly braces means that we are destructuring the props that is passed to any component. So it's like writing const user is equal to props, and we will destructure this value already here by typing curly braces user. So we can move back inside our index.js and pass the user to the other component, but we still don't have the user, because we are taking from Moralis just is authenticated and authenticate, but we can grab also, without deleting authenticate, we can grab also the user from use Moralis. So look, we have really everything. And type user is equal to user. So we are passing the user to our other component. So we now have the user, and we can use it inside this text and take user.get username, because on the user object we have the get username method that will grab for us this value here. Where is this value here? Now is just a randomly generated string, but then we will have we will implement a method to change and update the username. Let's go back to our application, and look, we have dashboard, this randomly generated string, and our logout button. Let's now make this button able to log out this user, so it will remove this data from the local storage and will delete the session, and so log out the user. And we can again do it really easily. Instead of just using again the use Moralis hook, import the logout method, and they consume the logout method from the use Moralis hook, we can grab it again inside from index.js, the logout method, and pass as a prop logout is equal to logout. So we can move back to our header and just type here on click logout, but we didn't destructure it from the props, so just type here logout. And now we have our unstyled authentication flow. I hope working. Let's try clicking logout. Look, we don't have any session data in our local storage, and we are correctly redirected. Not redirected because we are not changing any route, it's just switching, and now our web application is showing us the login screen we created before. And really, with just few lines of code, we have a Web3 authentication flow with Metamask correctly working using Moralis. Really, it's incredible. When I try this new technology and I see that really make our life easier and also make things faster, really, I really fell in love with this new technology. So now let's log in back. Now that we are logging back again, we can change this signature request message, because I said to you before that I was going to show you how to do it. And also this time you will listen the word easy a lot during this video tutorial, because really everything is easy, nothing to say. So in the Authenticate we have the sign in message key, and we can say sign to login to dashboard 3. Let me save, go back. So let me cancel this signature request and try again. Look what we have here. Message. Sign to login to dashboard 3. Amazing. And we can sign in back, and we are correctly signed in inside our dashboard. So let's style this header a bit, and as we did before, we can start from the main flex component. So as we did before, we can start from the flex and pass the justify content equal to space between now, then give a background of purple 400, a color of white, and then let's also give a padding X, so horizontal padding of 10, and vertical padding, so padding Y of 6. Then inside this center we have the title, and let's make it a little bit bigger, so font size XL, font weight of bold. We have the text here, okay, and then the username is okay in this way, and the button again we can give a margin left of 4, so to space a bit from the username, and the color scheme as we did before of purple. And then what we can do, we can also pass a disabled prop, because we can exploit again, we can consume again a boolean that lives inside the use Moralis hook, and this is logging out method, and pass it to header is logging out equal to is logging out. Go back to our header, the structure is logging out, and pass this boolean inside the disable. So now we are saying if the user is logging out, disable this button. So we can move back here, and as you can see we have something to fix. The title is not showing up, and this flex box is not taking all the available space. So we can go back inside our index and see here add, so we have title, typo, and then we can start styling this flex, that is the dashboard screen, and give again a direction of column. This means that we will have our dashboard, our navbar header at the top, and then in the column direction, so below, we will have the main screen. So here the title is correctly showing, and also we have the logout button and the username here. So since we'll need before, let's take all the available space and say width is equal to 100 viewport width and height is equal to 100 viewport height. Perfect. So our header is correctly set up. Everything is working. We have the login screen correctly set up too, so we can log in up again. We have our message, we can sign this request, and we are correctly logged in. So we can start to create this, let's call dashboard main components, and we will have just, as you saw in the intro, different tabs in which we can check the profile, the last transaction, then we can check the NFTs, we can check our balance, and we can send Ethereum too. So let's go back again. And under this header, let's now define a box component, always from Chakra UI. Give the flex prop equal to 1. So it means since we are inside the flex component with direction of column, and we have the header and then the box, so we have two elements inside this flex, giving the prop of flex 1 means it's just like telling this box component grow to take all the remaining space that the header is leaving to you and take all of it. So let's give also a background color of lighter purple, so purple 100, and a bit of padding just to center it. Padding X of 44 could be fine, and padding Y of 20. So look, now we have all this light purple 100 taking, thanks to the flex equal to 1 prop, all the remaining available space that the header just gave to the box component. Inside this box component we can define our tabs. So first of all we need the tabs component. Inside the tabs component we have the tab list, and inside the tab list we have each tab that contains the name of the tab. So we can, oops, what I'm doing here, the tab, and we can start with the profile tab. Then just pass the font weight equal to bold prop, and we can just copy paste it multiple times. So the second one is balance, balance. The third one is transactions. Then we have NFTs, and then we have the last one, send ETH, send Ethereum. Now, since we are under the Rinkeby Test Net, all this data that we will grab thanks to the Web3 API provided by Moralis is all the data related to the Ethereum blockchain. So we will have the ERC20 tokens, and also for NFT we will grab the 720, ERC720 and the ERC1155. So now that we have this tab list, and tab is not imported, so let's import tab. Okay, so now we have the tab. We have to define, so now we have the title of the tab, and now we need the panels. So tab panels before, and the tab panels wraps the each tab panel. Tab panel here, import, and again we have the first one is, now let's just write simple text profile, and then inside here we will render all our component that we will make. So the profile component, then we'll have balance component, then we'll have transaction component, and so on. Profile, so we have balance, transaction, send Ethereum, and we are missing just NFTs. Copy, paste. Cool. Let's check if here we are. Thanks to Chakra UI component, we have our tab. So profile, balance, open balance, transaction, open transaction, so NFTs, so send Ethereum. So we can start to style these tabs a bit and give size of LG. Again, to be consistent with the colors, color scheme of purple. Then we can pass also an align center, because as you can see now they are aligned on the left. So if I just save to show you, look, now they are centered on the page. And then we can pass also the variant of enclosed to have a bit of border up here. Look, when we select, here we are. So now that we have our main dashboard, let's say all not done, but the skeleton is done, we can start to create each simple component that will populate this tab. So the first one is profile, so we can go following the listed order. So back in our components folder, we have just tether now, and we can create profile.js. So here, export default function profile, and let's return a simple h1 profile. Now let me go back to, we can close this one, to index, and instead of having profile, we can bring our newly created component inside this tab panel. So profile is showing up, yes, from component, and close it. Let's see. Here we are. No difference because we wrote the same, just to see, just to show you that everything is okay. We can say now is okay. Look, now we have the profile component inside the profile tab. But before to move forward and so to code the profile, we can think a better way to display this component. Since all of them will have a common container, so let's think it like a card with a white background, and what will change from each tab to another, it's what's inside this container. So we can create kind of a layout for each tab without coding it every time for each tab. So I have the container coded for the profile tab, I have the container coded for the balance tab. Since it's the same, let's first create this container, and so then we can move forward with each tab component. So let's create a new file and call it custom container.js, and again export default function custom container. I know there are some extension with React snippet to create function component, and so class-based component, just typing RFCA and so on. But I don't know, I feel pressure writing each time export default function and so on, so I just don't use them, and every time, I don't know, sometimes I like to repeat myself for certain things. So this custom container, it's really simple. So just return out of the box, we will return a box from Chakra UI, close. Inside here display children, not this children, but this children. Let me remove this auto import, and this children comes from props, and are just the components that we will put inside this container. I will show it in a bit. So let's give a background of white, width of full, so take all the available space, and this is the space that the tab panels give us, so it's simply just more or less the space that is the space that each panel is taking. Again, 8 of full, horizontal padding of 20, vertical padding of 10, then we can make the border rounded, LG. We can also give a bit of shadow, again LG, and then let's pass also text, align left, so it's not centered. Now that we have this custom container that we will use in each tab component that we'll create, we can go back inside our profile, and first of all import our custom container from the same tab, and here write hello, I am inside the custom container you just coded. Let's see, look, we have this white panel, and inside this rendering the profile component thanks to the children props. Perfect. So now we can start thinking to our profile. It will be really simple. So we are going to show a username, a wallet address, And then also we will create a simple form that takes a string to change the username. Thanks to the Moralis SDK API, you can also set user data like email address or telephone, but I'm saying it just to let you know, but we are not adding it. I'm showing you only how to change the username, and changing also or creating also the email and the phone number is really the same flow. So I'm just showing how to update the username. So again, let's start with a text from Chakra UI, and here we can have in bold. We can start with a simple emoji. Let's make I don't know, let's add a funny face to this one, and then give it a space and BSP, and write username semicolon, and outside of the bold again we have the user dot why user ready, no, let's remove this wrong import. So we need to grab the username. So inside the profile, let's destructor the user object. So we can go back inside the index, and where we defined our component inside the tab panel, let's pass the user that we already have from up above. Here we have user from the use Moralis cook. So we are passing it to the profile component. Back inside the profile component, now we have the user, and so we can just type user dot get username method. Let's see. Look, username, and we have this randomly generated string as is shown here on the header. Then let's grab the wallet address. We can just copy this line and paste here and say wallet address. Let's change this emoji. And so now let's add some money in the search bar. Look, I have frequently used. Let's put this one with the $sign. Instead of get username, now we can use the get method and pass inside the value that we want to grab in this address, Ethereum address. Look, this is the address 62DC, and you can check here 62DC. Perfect. So we have our wallet address showing up. And now let's just code the simple form inside here that will allow us to type the username and pass on the onSubmit method the function to update this username. So we can do it by start typing form. So we have the form tag. Inside we can use the form control component provided by Chakra UI. Inside the form component we have the form label, just to give a label, and here we can type set a new username, and this is an HTML4. Let's call it username. So we will pass the ID to the input below, and so this form form label, we will have the input always from Chakra UI, and close it. So we give the ID of username like the HTML4, then is type of text. We can give a simple placeholder and say example the Italian dev. Okay, then we need to pass a value and also an onChange method, so to track and grab what the user type inside it. Then let's add just a symbol button at the bottom, always from Chakra UI, and type what we can type inside the button. Put a simple, let's again put a simple emoji, give NBSP space and type change username. So this button is of type submit, color scheme of purple, and then we can start now thinking about our form data. So value, we can keep track of this value using React useState. So we will store this value in a state, React state. So const input and set input is use state from React. And so this one is empty at the beginning, so the value is input, and in the onChange method we have the event, and so we can say set input like event.target.value, and so we are grabbing it. So just to show you that this is working fine, I can do a simple console log of the input. Go back, look, we have this input form. I can open the developer tools under console. Let's clean up to make more space, and yeah, right, look, so we are listening for any word typed inside this input form, and we are storing it inside the value input that is tracked by and preserved inside the React state. So let me delete and move back to Visual Studio Code, so we can now, with this value, we can call the onSubmit method of the form, and this will take again the event, so we can prevent the default, event.prevent default, and then we can write if input dot trim, so we are trimming all the available space, all the white space is not equal to empty, so we are not accepting just a word like space, so we are trimming it, and after we trim it we are checking against an empty string, so we are saying if input is not empty, what we can do is to use the setUserData method, again coming from use Moralis. So what we have to do is just const curly braces equal to use Moralis, open and close. Let's see, the import is here, and we can grab now from use Moralis the set user data, and also is user updating, so we can disable the button when the user is updating, when the username is updating. So we can click here on the button disable equal to is user updating. Perfect. And so inside here we can type set user data and pass the username value. So username key is equal to the input. And then, as I said before, here you can pass to the email key and also the phone key, the password, but we are not gonna do it now. And then we can chain then method. So when this method is done and so the username is updated, we can clean up with the callback function inside the then method. We can clean up our input. So set input again to empty string. Okay, so let's give also this form control build of margin to space everything. So margin top of 6 and margin bottom of 6. We can move back to our application. We are not gonna do it responsive to is out of the scope of this tutorial, because as you can see it's not so it's completely not styled for to be responsive. So here we have the set new username, so we can type example, it suggests the Italian dev. We can click on change username and look, username we have the Italian dev, and also is showing up here the Italian dev. As a further check, what we can do is go back to our Moralis dashboard, so our database, and here we have one user, and we can check username now. We don't have anymore the randomly generated string, but we have the Italian dev as we did. So cool. Now the first tab is done. So we can move to the balance. So what we want to do in the balance tab is to grab the balance we have in our account and also all the ERC20 token we have in this wallet. Now I'm quite sure that under this account I not all have Rinkeby Test Ethereum token, so this fee token, but I'm quite sure I have also the Chainlink test token, because as I showed you in a previous video, I'm used to take the Rinkeby fake Ethereum token from the Chainlink faucet. Chainlink faucet Rinkeby. So from here, because I really don't like the official Ethereum faucet for the under the Rinkeby Test Network, because you have to, you know how most of the time it doesn't work. Then let me show you Rinkeby faucet for this one, and this also the official one that is suggested on the Ethereum website. And then, as you can read here, you have to make a tweet or to post on Facebook with your Ethereum address embedded or in the tweet or in the Facebook post, then post the URL here and wait. Really, most of the time doesn't work, takes time, and I don't like it. So I find it easier to use the faucet Chainlink, and you have to just copy the address, paste it here. So I'm saying that I'm sure that I have also link token inside this test wallet under the Ethereum network, because in the past, most of the time I used this tool, this faucet, and so I receive not only the 0.1 test Ethereum, but also 10 test links. So if I send the request, I didn't paste anything. Now it's the address is pasted correctly, and it's really fast. As you can see now, it's waiting for the confirmation to happen, and in a few seconds we will see our Ethereum go to 0.299 something, and then I'm sure I also have the chain link, but I didn't import the token address, so it's not showing us inside this wallet. But I said that just to say that here we will grab the Ethereum token that is the native token of the Ethereum blockchain with one method, and then there is another method to grab all the ERC20 tokens that are inside our wallet. So let's go back inside Visual Studio Code, create a new component this time, new file balance.js, and again here export default function balance, okay, and return. Now we are not going to return just a dummy text and then test if it works, but we can just return as of now our custom container, because we created it, and say I am the balance. Perfect. Then go back inside, we can close the profile, go back inside the index.js, and the tab panel, instead of showing just a simple balance text, we this time can show the balance component we just not created but not finished yet. So just a simple test. Here we are. Now we have profile and balance. The custom container is correctly working, and the balance is showing up. So what we can do is to start coding this balance. So we can start creating a simple text and write inside this text my ERC20 tokens. Perfect. Now that we have this my ERC20 tokens, as I said before, we have to grab the native tokens. So the native tokens of the Ethereum blockchain is the Ether, token. Always, let's say most of the time called Ethereum, but it's the name of the token is Ether. Ethereum is the blockchain, but it's commonly used the Ethereum token. So let's start grabbing it. And again, we can do it by using this time Web3 API provided by Moralis. So we can start typing const Web3 API. So we are grabbing this one directly from the blockchain. Use Moralis Web3 API. So now we have a different hook, and this hook now is use Moralis Web3 API. Okay, so we can define a new function, const, and call it fetch native balance, because we are going to fetch Ether with this method, and define an async anonymous function, and inside it we have const, let's call result is equal to await, and now the Web3 API dot. Now we can grab account data, also storage data if you are working with the IPFS, and then also token related data. But we need now account data because we want to retrieve the balance of the Ethereum of an account dot, and here we can change the get native balance method. Here we can pass some option, and first of all, the first option is the chain, and we are on the Rinkeby testnet chain, and then address. Which address? We need to pass the user address. So, how to grab the wallet address from the user? It's easy, like we did before for the profile. So we can go back inside the index where we imported our balance component and also give to this balance component the user object. Go back inside balance, the structure form props the user object, and then here at the address key we can give the user dot get what? The Ethereum address. Perfect. So now we can pass also a catch to catch any error from this method, and we can just console log the error. Okay, so now we can, to see if it's working, console.log what this result. But when we will call this function, we can call this function when the components mount. So inside the use effect. So inside the use effect from React again, we have our callback function and then pass an empty array as dependency. And we can call this fetch native balance and call. And now you can understand also, because we define this fetch native balance in a custom function without writing it already inside the use effect, because inside the use effect we cannot write any async function directly inside the use effect. So now if we go back to the browser, open the developer tools, as you can see, let me clear, avoiding all this fast refresh, and again received false for an attribute disable. I think I missed a D somewhere. Let's fix this one before too. So we have the profile disable. It's okay. Where does we have another button? The header disabled. No, that disable. Okay. So now we can go back to what we were doing. So checking the balance. Let's see if this error goes away. Okay, perfect. And now we have the balance showing up, but we have a huge number. In fact, in Solidity language, that is the language mostly used to write Ethereum contract, this type is of type big number, but you can say in our wallet we have just 0.299998. Why here we have this really huge number? Because this is the value expressed in WEA way, and this the order of magnitude used in programming, because you know that the crypto can reach huge value when translated in fiat, like dollars, euro. So also at 0. Something could be enough money. So better to have this huge number. But for us, what we can do is we can translate from way, that is 18 decimals, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 0 dot. so 18 decimal, we can translate. Now that we know we have this value, we can translate from way to just display ETH. And we can easily do it by exploiting another method that Moralis provides us. So what we can do in an if statement, so if result.balance, so if we have a balance, what we can do, we can store this value inside the React state. So here we can say const it balance and set it balance, if I'm able to write, is equal to use state, and the beginning it can be equal to 0. So we don't have an Ethereum balance. And then once we know we have balance, we can do set it balance, and we can pass Moralis auto import. Let me check, not Moralis time, but just Moralis. I don't need the Moralis type, but I need the Moralis object. Then dot units dot from way. So from way, this method from way will convert a big number expressed in way, so with 18 decimal, to Ethereum, and we can pass here result.balance. So now that we have the Ethereum balance already grabbed, what we can do? We can say under our text, if we have Ethereum balance, okay, display a text, and here we can write the, again we can pass a bag of money, and then we can give space and BSP, close, and pass here the Ethereum balance we have, and say in bold Ethereum. Let's see if the balance is correctly showing. If we move to balance, look, 0.2999 Ethereum. And in our wallet we have 0.2998 Ethereum. So now we are able to not only grab our address, have a username, a Web3 authentication flow with Metamask, but now we are also able to grab the Ethereum inside our wallet. And remember, these are fake Ethereum because we are just developing our app, so we are doing it everything under the Rinkeby Test Network. Now, as I said before, we need to use another method to grab all the ERC20 token inside our wallet. And you saw before that we took from the Chainlink faucet not only 0.1 Ether but also 10 link, and the link token is also an ERC20 token. So if we do everything right in fetching the ERC20 balance from our wallet, we will see our link token inside our wallet showing up here. So let's go back in Visual Studio Code, and now we need to import another hook from Moralis, but this time is a different hook. So open and close curly braces is equal to use ERC20 balances, and this will give us back what? A method to fetch ERC20 balance and also data. So once we call this function and this method successfully complete, this data will be populated by the data grabbed by this method. So what we can do? We can again call this method inside our user effect, and so we not only have fetch native balance to fetch the Ethereum, but also have fetch ERC20 token balance, and again pass as parameters. And now write params in the option object. Inside the parameters object we define chain what, which one, again the Rinkeby chain, and then from which wallet have I to grab this ERC20 token, and so we define again the address, but we have the address because we used it before to fetch the native balance, so what we can do is just copy, paste, and so our inside the use effect, so when the component will mount, what we are doing, we are fetch the native token, so the ethers, and we are fetch all the ERC20 tokens that are inside our wallet. So what we can do is to show, to see if everything working, this data. So we can just type console.log data. And if this method successfully complete, this data will populate with the value of the ERC20 token inside our wallet. So let's open again. As you can see, we already have an array. Let me clear and refresh again the page. And now at the beginning is null because we don't have any data. As soon as the component mount, it says, look, we have another token inside here because I don't have any ERC20 token except the ethers and the chain link. And if we open, look, we have the balance again in way. I said to you I did already before, so it's 30. 18 decimal. We have the name of the link, chain link token, and so the symbol link, and we have also the token address. So what can I do to show you it's on my wallet? I can copy the string content. So I will do it for you. Paste the token address. It will show link as token symbol 18 token decimal. Add the token. As you can see, I have 30 test link inside my wallet under its account. This correctly showing up here. So what we can do now to show up this data? It's easy. We can go back in Visual Studio Code inside the balance tab, open and close the divider just to put a line in front of each token. Okay, it's correctly imported from Chakra UI, and I can check if I have data, and I can do data.map, so I can map. Now I have only one ERC20 token other than the Ethereum one, but the Ether one, but if I will have more, so we will map inside this array, and this will give us what I can call token, and this will implicitly return a div. Let's give as soon as possible a key, so we know we will not have any warning, because inside the map each element that is rendered by this map need to have a unique key to be tracked and optimize the rendering by React Next.js, and I can put a token symbol because each token has a unique symbol, so also the key will be unique. And again I can pass a text as I did for the Ethereum balance, but in this case instead of having the Ethereum balance I have the again moralis.units.fromWay, and there are also other methods inside units from way, and pass now the token.balance. And here inside the strong tag, the B tag, instead of hard coding the symbol of the token, I can just pass token.symbol. And below another divider in case we have multiple crypto ERC20 tokens to show up. So let me go in balance and look. We have Ethereum and 30 link. So now under our balance tab, we are grabbing all the ERC20 token plus the native one that is also an ERC20 token that are inside our wallet and are correctly showing up. And all we need to perform this was just to use really just two simple Moralis hook. One is the use Moralis Web3 API, from which we grab the account and then the get native balance to get the Ethereum, and then the use ERC20 balances to fetch all the ERC20 tokens and then have them correctly saved and updated in the data state here. So let's give just a little bit of styling. So what we can do is a margin bottom of 6 and font size of XL and font weight of bold. Okay, perfect. So 2 of 5 tabs are done. Profile working and balance working too. So now we can move to the transactions one. So here we will show all the transactions that are related to this address that we can see here from Metamask and also from the Rinkeby Ether scan. But since we have this really easy to use Web3 API provided by the Moralis SDK, we can do it by using Moralis. So let's go back in Visual Studio Code and as we did before. So now we can close the balance and so the profile and the custom container and the header because we don't need them. And under the components folder, we can create a new component, transaction.js. Again, export, default, function, transactions, and return what? Again, our custom container, and write as dummy text, I am the transactions. Go back inside the index, and instead of rendering this dummy text, we will render a component with a dummy text inside. Here we are. Okay, it's not showing transactions. Why not? Custom container inside the index, because we don't need to show the custom container, but to show transactions and remove the custom container here. Okay. Right, so we have the transaction. So what we can do now, again, to call and grab data from the Ethereum blockchain, what we can use, the Moralis Web3 API. So let's go back inside transaction, and first of all, let's bring inside this component the use Moralis Web3 API context. And how to do it? Const web3 API is equal to use Moralis Web3 API. Perfect. Again, we can create a custom function, async function, and call it const fetch transactions is equal to async anonymous function and password const, let's call it data, and the weight now Web3 API dot what? Again, we need to analyze and grab data related to an account address. And on this account, we have the get transaction object. Okay. Again, let's pass the chain key option and this Rinkeby, and also address. How to grab the wallet address from the user as we did before. So let's go back inside our index and pass also as we did for the profile and balance component. Let's pass the user object also to the transaction. So we can go here inside the transaction, structure the user object from the props, and inside to the get transaction object, options object, and the address key pass the user dot get open close parenthesis Ethereum address. So now what if we have data, we can set it in our state. So let's create a React state up above, and let's call it const transactions and set transactions, and this is equal to use state. Okay, and at the beginning is just empty, undefined, and so if data, what we can do, set transaction equal to data dot result. So now, so this one is just an empty, let's define it as empty array instead of undefined. And so here we can console.log what? We can console log transaction. And now can check if this method is working, we can call it inside the use effect as we did before. So when the component will mount, go and grab all the user transaction. And again also pass an empty dependency list. So we can go back, browser, open the developer tools and check what we have. Look, an array of 12. Again, let me clear to have more space. Refresh the page. Under the transaction, this is the balance. Here we have the transaction list. Look, we have 12 transaction lists starting at index.0. We have the block hash, block number, block times address from address, the gas price, the gas used, the hash, the nonce, to address, and this is, I think, let me check the time, maybe is when I got the 0.1 from the chain link faucet, and grabbing the hash, so copy string content, we can go on Rinkeby scan, testnet Rinkeby scan, we can paste here, and look, 29 minutes ago, the 0.1 ether I got from the chain link faucet. So all the transactions now are correctly shown. We have all the data. What we can do is also we can provide to each of them a link to, if the user can navigate inside the rinkeby.etherscan.io, because the base URL is always the same, and append at the end the transaction hash. And now we have all the hash related to each of the transactions. So let's grab also this URL and store it inside the constant base URL, and this is equal to a string, and we can paste it here. So now that we have the transaction, we can just use some Chakra React component and display them. So let's start from text and write, let's see, I have 12, but it's better to pass to don't have really a lot of data since we don't need them. We can pass inside the option also the limit, so let's put 5, so we will grab only 5 transactions. Look, if we go to the dashboard again and refresh, we will have an array of, did I save? No, I didn't. That's why we had again 12 transactions. It grabbed all the transactions. Look, now we have only 5 transactions. This 12 is related to the fast refresh happened before. Look, now we have only 5 transactions because we set the limit option to 5. So we can say now my last 5 transactions. And again here, let's give a font size Excel and margin bottom of 6 and font weight of bold. Cool. So now we have our title, and what we can do is to check if we have transaction and then transaction dot map. So we will map in the transaction array, and from each value we got, let's call transaction, and implicitly return what? Let me put it inside a div, and again as key, always the first thing to do, let's put transaction.hash, because we know each transaction has a unique hash, so also the key will be unique. And then we can make use of the link component, always from Chakra UI. Again, let's use we can use this arrow and space from this arrow and BSP to make sure there is space, and then here we can display the transaction dot hash, and now we can pass also a href to as a prop of the link component, and the href will be the union of the base URL. Let me see if the base URL, okay, has also the trailing slash at the end, so we need just to add, just after the base URL, the transaction hash, not with the and but $sign. Let me copy and paste. And then we can also add the is external prop, so it will open this link in a new tab. And again, as we did for the balance, we can make use of a divider Chakra UI component just to put a line between each transaction. So we can go back to the browser and look, we have the last transaction that are related to this Ethereum address, and if we click on each of them, a new tab will open and we will have the transaction detail from the ringbeaterscan.io. Each of them are different. This one 3 hours and 58 minutes ago, and so on. Perfect. So we have another feature of our Web3 dashboard perfectly working. So we have profile, balance, transaction. Now it's time for NFTs. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and create a new component. As we already did, we can close this transaction one and create a new file, and ft.js, and again, as usual, export default function NFT, return what? A custom container, and inside I am the NFT. So let's go back inside our index, and instead of displaying this text, let's grab the NFT component and close it. So let's check. Perfect. So we have the custom container perfectly set up for the NFT. So what we can do now is to grab the NFT. And again, Moralis comes in help, because we also have a hook, easy to use, that will allow us to grab the NFT balance related to the address we are providing. And remember, we are always working under the Rinkeby Test Net, so it means Ethereum, and so it means NFT related to the Ethereum blockchain. So what we can do is to use the use NFT balances to grab the NFT related to an account. So it provides us a get NFT balances method, and again a data. So we can call this get NFT balances method inside the use effect, and if it will resolve successfully, this data will populate with all the NFT data related to our account. So again, use effect, and again empty dependency list, and here we can go get NFT balances, and as we did, we can pass params key, that is an object in which we can define the chain as Rinkeby, and address. Again, we can go back to index, pass the user as we did for other tab to the NFT tab 2, go back to NFT, destructure the user object, and inside the address we can take user.get what? Again, Ethereum address. So what we can do is to check if everything works fine, just write a simple console.log what? Console.log data. Not edit and copy. So let me just write data, and also it's better if we remove some previous console logs, since we don't need to check them anymore. Balances also, I have it. Perfect. And I don't know if in profile we have also a console log. No. So let's open back, and let's before close all this tab that we don't need, save, and go back to the browser. Open as always the developer tools, clean a bit and refresh. And as you can see here, we have is perfectly fetching the NFT data, but I don't have any NFT under this account. Now I have another test account which I used to play a bit with NFTs, and I think I created one. So what I can do is I can log out, I can disconnect this account just to make sure that everything will work fine, switch from account 1 to account 2, and here I have 0.9 fake Ether, and log in with this account. So it's another test. You can click next, connect, perfect, the sign-in message, sign to log into Dashboard 3, I can sign, and now I have again a randomly generated username, and let me change it for this account. Let's call it the Italian Dev2. Change username, perfect, is changing, is showing up here. The address now is this one, and it ends with 0029, perfect. In balance, we have these some test crypto I did just to play under the Rinkeby Test Network. I have 50 link inside, transaction, my last transaction, then under NFT table we have this array, and now we have one result. Look, EPFS Moralis. Now, since this was an array I created without metadata, without storing the image somewhere else, look, we have the protocol ERC72155. And what we can do to, just to show you, for example, the images, is that I can grab this hash. So let's copy this string, paste it here, grab this hash, because this is not working anymore, and I can go to ipfs.io.ipfs, I already tried it here, and paste this one, so it will navigate inside the ipfs.io, that is the storage for the decentralized world. And here I have some little metadata I used for my NFTs, and this Web3 Italian enthusiast, I was playing to create some DAO. So this NFT was like an NFT membership to all the Italians joining this DAO, but it's just a local project I have on my computer. And now I have here the image, IPFS link, and I can just paste here inside. I'm using the Brave browser, and it shows the simple NFT I've done. So as you can see, we correctly grabbed the NFT data related to my account. So we can now go back to Visual Studio Code. So we can start to display just some simple. I don't have the image, and I don't have any NFT, but we can do is to try to reproduce the case in which the NFT has a URL, image URL, so we can display it. So let's start with a text from Chakra UI, and I can write my NFTs, and here we can give a font size of Excel, a font weight of bold, perfect. So now we can check now if we have data. Let's go and inside data, inside result, as we saw from the console log. Let me show you again, because here we have the data. So it's giving us this array. Inside here we have this object, inside here we have the result array. So we have to map inside the result array. So we have data.result.map, and we can take what? We will have a, let's call just NFT, so a single NFT, and implicitly return. Now we can create a simple box in case we will have an image. So inside this box, if we have nft.image, if we have an image parameter, an image key inside the NFT object, we can display it inside an image component from Chakra UI, and source is equal nft.image. Perfect. And so now, then we can show just the, we can use just to show something the token URI. Let's style a bit this box and give a margin top of 4, an horizontal padding of 2, a vertical padding of 2 again. Then let's give some border width of 1 pixel and a border radius of MD medium. And again, don't forget to pass a unique key, and again we can use the NFT token underscore URI. And I think it's okay for the NFT panel. Look, we have just a token URI coming from this address. As we saw, the NFT is correctly shown, so as we did before, we can grab this and paste right here. We will have again this URL for the image, and look, here we have the NFT. Perfect. So now we have the profile working, balance working, transaction is working, NFTs is working, and we are grabbing all of them are data related to the account which we use to the Metamask account, so the wallet address we use to log in inside this Web3 dashboard. And the last part remains to do is the send Ethereum. So we will code a tab here that will allow us to send Ethereum to another address. Again, like we did before, a new file, let's call it send.js inside the components folder. And here, again, let's start by typing export default function send, and here again let's start by returning our custom container. I am the send tab, paste it here, go back inside index, let's remove this text and display here what? The send component, and close. Perfect. Just a little check. Okay, perfect. We have our custom container from our custom container perfectly set up under the Send Ethereum tab. So What we need to do now is to code this tab panel, and we are sure we need an input to insert the amount of the Ethereum we want to send, and another input in which we can type or copy-paste the address of the receiver. So let's start this now. Instead of, as we did for the previous component, in which before we grab the data and then we focused on the UI, this time let's start from the UI. So we don't need to hardcode any value inside the function, since we need the amount and the address. Let's before find a way to grab this from the UI, and then we will pass all this value to the method. So inside the custom component, let's start as always with a text, just a little title for the tab. In this case is send Ethereum. Okay, and then let's give a font size of XL, a font weight of bold. Perfect. So now we have the text for the text for the title for our tab panel. So we are sure we need a form, not a former, but we need a form. So from this form, as I said before, what we need to do? We need to grab the amount and we need to grab the receiver address. So inside this form, we can exploit, as we did before for the username, the form control component. Let's give it just a margin top of 4, not 44, just 4. Now, inside this form control, let's start with a form label, and this form label is the HTML for what? For the amount. So because we will use the ID amount for the number input, and this is label is the amount of ETH. So form label. After the form label for the amount, we can define a number input, and inside this number input we will have a number input field, and also at the end of this number input we will have two arrows, one up and one down, which we can click, and we can increase the number by a predefined step we define here inside the number input. Step 0.1. So now we can bring inside this number input component the number input stepper, and inside the number input stepper we will have the number increment stepper and the number decrement stepper. Now let's fill all the props that this component needs. So inside the number input we have the step. Okay, then we need to define an onChange method, and we will follow the Chakra UI documentation. Then this number input field has an ID as amount. So the HTML for amount is the form label for this number input field. So they are linked together by having defined the HTML4 and the ID. And then with this number input field, we'll have a value. As always, we need to store this value inside the React state. So let's do it. So const let's define amount and set amount, and is equal to use state, and let's start from 0 as a default value, and this is amount. Perfect. Now, as I said, this form input to work needs an onChange method, and as Chakra UI suggests, I can show you. Let's go here, Chakra UI. Let's open and type for the number input. So as the Chakra UI shows, so here we have the number input we used before. These are the number input step per increment and decrement, and to track them we need to find a onChange, a custom onChange, like they suggest here, a const handle change value and not set value but set amount, to keep track of the amount. And so on the onChange we can pass the handle change here, so we can easily check if everything is working fine by console logging the amount. Let me close this, go to send. Perfect, we have our title before, then our label for this number input, and look, we have the increment stepper is working. That is the step defined here. We can also define by 2, for example, just to show you. Now it passes 8 for, let's put back to 1 and see, open the console log to see if everything works fine. Look, we have all the number. Now we can type 2, 0.57, perfect. So now we have a way to grab the Ethereum amount that we want to send, and we can delete this console log. Now we need another input, but this time a text input, to grab the receiver address. So always inside the form control, but just below the number input. Let's start again with the form label. In this case is send to, again, HTML4. Let's choose receiver. Let's give an HTML4 receiver. Let's just define a margin top of 4, so we give a little bit of space. And above this form label, let's pass an input, self-closing, not in this way. And first of all, ID of receiver, so label and input are linked now together. It's a type of text, okay, and let's give a placeholder. Placeholder is the input, no, input from Chakra UI React, okay, a placeholder of receiver address, and now we need to give a value, and again we keep track of this value and store it in a useState React hook, so const receiver and set receiver is equal to useState, and by default is empty. Okay, so the value now is receiver, and on the onChange method, we can take the event and target the value. So set receiver, let's just copy paste to avoid any typo. Set receiver e.target.value. Perfect. Let's see if we are taking it correctly. Just console.logging the receiver, save, go back to our browser, open again the developer tools, clean everything and start to type in the receiver address. Perfect. So we are taking also the receiver address. So now we have everything to insert a button that fire ups the send method to send token from one address, to send Ethereum from one address to another. So let's start by, after the form control, adding a button from Chakra UI, and here we can click send. We can add a little emoji. This one with money flying away is perfect. As always, let's give in space by NBSP and %. This button has a margin top of 4. It's of type submit, and again color scheme of purple. Let's say button is not defined because, as always, the auto import didn't work well, and now button is defined. Let's see, send. Okay, perfect. So now what we have to do is to write down and grab everything we need from another Moralis hook. This time the hook we need is called use Web3 transfer. So instead of receiving this console log, since we don't need it anymore, we can write const. We have fetch, and also we can grab this fetching, so we can disable the button when it's fetching, and we extractor it from use Web3 transfer hook. Here we need to pass what? The amount. Okay, so again we write Moralis dot units dot Ethereum and pass the amount. Then we need to find the receiver, and this the receiver address, and the type native, because we are moving just the native token. Since we are on the Rinkeby Test Network, again the native token is the Ethereum, so the Ether, sorry. So now that we have this fetch function that takes this option, we can call this fetch function when the form is submitted. So inside the form tag, we know we have the onSubmit method. First of all, we take the event and we prevent the default. I need curly braces, so e.prevent default, so to not submit, to not post the form. Then what we need to do before to call the fetch method, we need to enable Web3 to perform this action. So how to enable Web3? Just awaiting what? Moralis dot enable Web3. we have this method here. Now that Web3 is enabled, we can call the fetch function. And this fetch function return what? Return an onComplete method, an onError method, and onSuccess method. So what we can do in onSuccess and onError, we can show a toast in the case we have an error and a toast in the case we have a success. So let's bring the toast from const toast is equal to use toast from Chakra UI. Use toast from Chakra UI. Perfect. So we have this fetch function, and now inside the option object we can say what? In case of we have a non-success, we have a callback function that do something, and in case of onError case, we have another callback function in which we do something else. So inside onSuccess, what we can do? We can fire up a toast and pass these options. So title, let's say the successfully sent. Then we have a description, and we can say fresh ETH are showing up into the receiver wallet, and we can pass also a status of success, so it will be green, duration, the default 900 is fine, and this closable true, so we can close it. So now we have the onSuccess. Await is allowed in a non-sync function. You are right, because this is an async function on submit, and so we can await since it is. Oh, again, Moralis types, not Moralis types, but only Moralis. And now you are good to go. Okay, onError. Instead, but on success we can do something else too. We can set the receiver to an empty screen again, so we will clean up the input. onError, what we can do is take the error parameter, and again we can show up a toast and pass this object with title, just a simple error, description, we take the error parameter, status error, so it will be red, duration 900, then this closable is true. Perfect. So now it's time to test. So as I said before, we use the use Web3 transfer hook from the Moralis SDK. It gives us back a fetch method. This fetch method will have as parameter the amount we want to send, and we grab it from the input number, then the receiver address, and we grab it from the input text form. Type, we define native since we are under the Rinkeby Test Network, so we will send Ether. And then this fetch method, when the form will be submitted, we need to first of all enable Web3 to perform this transaction, and then we call the fetch method with the option defined above. This fetch method does also an onSuccess callback and an onError callback. On an onSuccess callback, we show up a toast success saying this, having this title and description, and on error will show up an error toast showing the error parameter that this callback function give us back in case of error. So that we have everything set up, let's go back inside our web application, and now just let's test if everything works fine. So first of all, let's see if we have back some error. So send error, receiver is required. Look, we didn't specify any receiver, but I think we can, I didn't disable the button. Yeah, because we can disable the button passing the other method, that the boolean that we are having back from the use web transfer tree hook function. So yeah, passes fetching. Okay, perfect. So now it's a bit okay. Receiver is required. Now let's grab my second address. So account 1, just let me copy the address and paste it here, amount of it 0.2. So now we have what inside here? 0.93. I can click send. Okay, perfect. Now sim is working. So here it shows from account 2 to my account 1. It shows up the gas fee and the Ethereum we are sent. Remember, these are fake ones because we are under the Rinkeby Test Network. So I can confirm the transaction. Here we are. Ethereum successfully sent. Fresh Ethereum are showing up into the receiver wallet. Now this one is cleared. And so let me check. This is pending. Look, the transaction is working. Perfect. And now they are sent. So 0.72. If I go to my account 1, I have now 0.49. Cool. And now we know how to send Ethereum from the from a web application with a simple form and all the magic done by Moralis. Can refresh to see the balance. Look, now it correctly shows up here 0.7 and the transaction 2. My last 5 transaction. Look, 0.2 Ether sent 48 seconds ago. 0.2. Perfect. Now that our application is completed, I hope you have all the basic knowledge thanks to this video tutorial on how to implement a fully functional Web3 authentication flow using Metamask thanks to the Moralis SDK. Then you also have the basic knowledge on how to exploit the Moralis Web3 API to grab data related to an address directly from the blockchain. So as you saw, we were able to grab the ERC20 token inside our wallet address, so the transaction, NFTs, and we also know how to send Ethereum. But my hope is that now you can leverage all this basic knowledge you acquired by following this course, and you can implement your own idea of a web application, a decentralized web application with the use of Moralis, because I showed you just the little part of what you can do, but you can expand really without no limits. I showed you how to work under the Ethereum testnet Rinkeby, but you can also grab data from Polygon, from BSC chain, and so I showed you how to transfer the native token of the Ethereum blockchain, but you can also transfer other token on other blockchain. You can also transfer not only token but also non-fungible token like NFTs are. So now you have a really solid base from which you can start your career in the Web3 development world, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video tutorial like I enjoyed recording it. If you think this content could be useful for you and you would like to watch more tutorials like this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment in the section down below. See you from the next video, the Italian Dev. Bye bye.